Welcome to 2021. Hopefully you did not catch the same cold that I caught over the Christmas break, but either way, we're glad you're joining us today. Today we have a special guest, Andy Liggett, host of YouTube channel Andy Walks With Me. And it's very fitting that he would be our very first guest in 2021 because his channel, he walks through the campus of the hospital where he works and provides an overview of every single chapter in the New Testament starting today. So go over to Andy Walks With Me, subscribe to that as well. It's a great channel. It's just awesome. Steve and I both subscribe, and we're really excited to have Andy as our guest for today's show.
Yeah, I guess we have to be like really up on the mics because
there you go.
Well, thank you. It's a nice kisses from Andy. I haven't seen you for ages and ages. We're going right to kissing.
We're French
That's
here.
the kind of friend. That's the kind of friends we are. So we were trying to remember the last time that we were all together.
Right.
And we came up with, I think it was when we went to the airport with my dad.
Airport with your dad.
When we were kids.
Yeah.
No.
I don't think we all three ever did that at the same time.
Yes,
we
we
most
did.
definitely did.
Did we? Oh, okay.
Do you remember we brought that bag of balls and stuff, bananas, and we dropped it?
I remember dropping bananas, but
Yeah,
but
so
I
back in the day, we my dad would work at
Now, is he going to get in trouble for this?
well, we're not going to get in trouble for this.
Okay.
So back in the day, my dad worked at an airport.
an undisclosed airport.
Yeah, an undisclosed airport.
Not international or anything.
No. It was a very, very he owned it.
Right.
So
It was Dave's airport.
yeah. So he would let us come to his shift when he would work a midnight shift, when he would work all night long, and it was just him and one other guy. And so we could come and be visitors. And in the tower where he worked, there was a stairwell, emergency stairwell. So it was, I don't know how tall the airport is, but it's got to be
The air traffic control tower is at least
Yeah,
10 stories.
10 stories. I mean,
Right.
it's 90 or 100 feet. And the stairwell was one continuous stairwell from the top to the bottom. And we were in, I guess, high school.
Mm-hmm.
And, in the slot between the stairs, you could spit from the top and you could watch it just fall. And it took
Right.
a couple seconds before it hit the bottom.
I was surprised that it was very difficult for things to get to the bottom. Because
it
like you would think you were right in the middle, and then 30 floors down, it would just not 30,
veer off.
But
Yeah, and there was no wind. I mean, it's fully
Right.
enclosed cement column.
right. But
And yet there were some convection currents.
Your spit would end up catching things and
Right.
whatever. But so we knew of this. So when we were there, all three of us, without my dad knowing, we smuggled in a bunch of bouncy balls and fruit.
Lacrosse balls, fruit.
The lacrosse ball was the grand finale. That was the big heavy rubber.
oh, I do remember.
It was a perfect sphere, and so the perfect sphere wouldn't be affected by the air so much.
And it was
so,
super heavy. It's like got a steel ball inside of it and
Yeah.
then completely covered in rubber. It's basically a super ball with a steel ball inside of it.
yeah.
The only thing I can remember, before you were talking about the lacrosse ball, was the banana, because I remember thinking, I want to see what this banana looks like when it goes down, and we couldn't find that banana. It was like, all I remember is that
There
it
was
smelled
parts-
like banana down there, and there was just like pus just everywhere.
Yeah, the banana, to no one's surprise, including ours, didn't make it all the way to the bottom.
Right.
But it made it a
there
long
was parts
way.
of banana
On
in the bottom,
every
like
stair.
4 floors.
Yeah, it was. I imagine that banana. It hit the first handle, like the stairway handle, and a slice of it came off, and then
Right.
it hit the next one, and it just did that for 10 stories.
As far as we
'Cause
could tell, it disintegrated.
Every
Right.
time we looked at a stair, there would be banana everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Part of bananas. And then, so the big one that we were actually nervous about, that we saved till the end, was the lacrosse ball, because the lacrosse ball weighs like a pound.
Yeah.
So one of us went to the top, one of you guys, because I remember then the other ones went to the bottom because you want to see it land.
Right.
And
And the bottom was not a flat surface either. Do you
Yeah.
recall that?
I do remember that the bottom was not a flat surface, and that's good.
It was a cement angle that matched the angle of the stairs, right?
Yeah. And so when somebody dropped it, it actually did make it all the way to the bottom. It was a good drop, whichever one of you guys did it. But then from the bottom, as soon as it hit, we couldn't actually see it because it's probably terminal velocity at that point. And then it hit, and of course it hit at the angled floor and then started just around the room like a bullet. So we were like, take cover. We didn't think about this too much. And then when it was done, we were like, are you okay? Like, we should have been
Am I okay?
We should have been one floor up.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was
Yeah.
like a pinball.
Yeah, it shot
Can't
everywhere.
imagine what it would be like if we actually got hit by that ball.
It would
It
have
would have
hurt.
hurt. Yeah, we would that would have been a problem for
So
the owner of the airport would have had to
Right.
figure out a way to get the fire department to come in and take us to the hospital because that would have been bad.
The only other thing I remember about going to the air traffic control tower was there was this big like red button, for, I guess it was like a fire alarm, but it made me feel like if something bad happened, like to an airplane, you would push this button.
It's probably exactly what it was.
Right. Well, I remember Dave was like, Andy, do you want to be on the news? It's like, all you have to do is push that button.
Push that button. We will be famous for a day. Would you like your
Maybe
15
not a good way.
Would you like your 15 seconds of fame to happen right now?
and the police are involved.
Right.
Well,
dad loses his job.
Yeah. If my dad ever listens to this, he's going to be like, kind of funny. No, it's he doesn't work there anymore, but not for anything that was wrong. We didn't do anything bad. We just kind of made a mess of the stairs.
Yeah, which we didn't.
In
We
hindsight,
didn't clean.
I was just about to say, but we cleaned it up.
Yeah, we totally cleaned it up.
Yeah. Well, those were good times. Andy, it's really good to see you. I'm glad you could be here.
So Andy is my brother, my younger brother. There's 3 kids in my family, and Andy's the middle child.
Yeah.
So he's
a good one.
Got all the issues that come with a middle child.
Yes.
Andy is the physical embodiment of that. So
Isn't that like being nice
yeah,
and easygoing? Like, everyone likes the middle child the best. The oldest one has all the responsibility. The youngest one is spoiled, and the
know
middle
that.
one is like, everyone likes him.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not saying right like everybody likes me, but I do feel like I come from a family of eldest. Like my mom was the oldest of 10, my dad was the oldest of 2, Steve was the oldest of 3, and my sister was the youngest child, but she's the oldest girl sibling, and for some reason she is just like a boss, just like an eldest child, and so I'm the only one in the family that's not.
Has no authority.
That's not, well, that's the thing. But I feel all the weight of just like trying to keep everybody together. Like if anybody's unhappy, I'm like, this is my job. And so I feel like that really ruined me for the rest of my life, because no matter who's upset anywhere, I feel like it's my job to be like, oh, everything's cool. Let's talk about something else. But
Boy, I sure am thirsty.
I wish somebody would go get it.
Oh man, where did?
I'm
was
looking
just-
at the. You
just-
don't know
I was-
how much. I am thinking there's a bottle of water right there. I need to go get it. But Steve told me that I have to stay right here
It's
next to
out
this
of-
microphone.
It's out of reach,
Oh
though.
my god!
And here,
What are we gonna
I
do?
know it's fine. I certainly wasn't putting that on you. I was just commenting that I'm not comfortable.
That's really hard for me.
No, don't get. I have a drink somewhere. I've set it down and I've lost it.
Yeah,
Probably in the bathroom.
it has to be.
So what are you doing right now?
Like
Catch me up.
just regular life stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got 2 kids. I just had a baby in June.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and still repairing surgical instruments, but and I'm starting a YouTube channel like you guys.
Nice. What's it called?
It's called what is it called?
What's the premise of the YouTube channel?
Okay, yeah. So there are 260 calendar days in a year, and there are also 260
Now,
chapters in the New Testament.
Are there 260 calendar days?
Weekdays.
Weekdays. Okay.
There's 260 weekdays. There's actually 261 this year.
To be fair, there are 260 calendar days. That just doesn't complete.
Right. That's not just all.
I
of
mean,
the, all of
most
the days.
calendars go to 365.
Yes. So weekdays there's 261 in 2021,
Okay.
and there's 260 chapters in the New Testament. So every day I'm going to go through a different chapter of the New Testament, and it's going to be like a devotional slash commentary, but it's only like 5 minutes because I only have like a 5-minute walk from my car to the hospital that I work at.
So why does the walk matter? Why does the 5-minute walk matter?
Originally the idea was I'm just trying to find bits of my life that I can use, and that 5-minute walk is kind of a delight, but it's also kind of a waste of time. Like I'm just walking, and so I thought I could utilize this time and do something else. But the channel / podcast is going to be called Andy Walks With Me, and so
I get it. So your name is Andy,
Right.
and you're walking to work.
Right.
So it's Andy Walks With Me, but it's
Right.
also Andy Walks With Me.
right, Andy
And
talks.
he
talks with me.
walks with
Yeah,
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 and
yeah,
he,
yeah.
yeah,
and he tells me I'm his own. Yeah.
that's cool.
So-
That's a great name.
That's the
Thank
last
you.
part of that?
How does it go?
I think there's more to it than that. I should know the song better if I named my.
What was the part that you said?
And he tells me I'm his own.
Oh, okay.
So I think it's called In the Garden. So it's talking about the Garden of Eden. So
Okay, so you're trying to one up us because you do a whole chapter a day, and
we
he
might
does it,
do it.
and he does it in 5 minutes.
And we might get through a chapter in a week.
Yes.
I think
And
it
I
takes
was
us
watching
at
your
least a half
show,
hour.
and I was like, I could do that in 5 minutes.
Yeah, you're doing a chapter a week, and you're taking 2.5 hours to get there.
Right.
Watch. Set back.
I'm going to do the whole New Testament.
No,
I
that's
won't
really
say
cool.
that this show wasn't a bit of inspiration for me. You know, I saw what you guys are doing, and there was no piece of it that was like one-upmanship. It was more I wanted to do this for myself so that I can continue on, you know, reading the Bible. And I don't know how many times I've done these Bible, you know, programs, and then it's not that I fall off the wagon, but I just don't absorb the Bible like I would.
Yeah.
And so this is so I'm reading the Bible, and if I teach it to other people, I really absorb it, and I've been doing it for a while. You know, I went to seminary. I know a lot about the Bible, and I just felt like, you know, some other people could gain from what I'm doing. So
But it's mostly selfish reasons.
yeah, definitely.
Well, the theme of this show is to run the race, realizing only one person gets the prize. So you run like that to win. And so you heard us start You heard the theme and
Right.
you're like, well, I can beat them.
Like they're running
So,
a good
I
race.
can at least beat them.
I'm going to run to
You know
win.
what I should have called it is the better race.
The better race.
Well, what's our so Andy, you'll reserve your judgment.
Okay.
We're gonna talk about 6 verses today.
Oh.
Okay, we're gonna do 6. We're not
Okay.
gonna do a whole chapter.
Right.
But hopefully this show doesn't take more than 5 minutes.
Okay.
So, what does the Romans say? Do you want to read it?
Definitely not me.
All
Okay,
right.
you want
You
me
go
to-
ahead.
All right. This is Romans 7, 1 through 6. Now, dear brothers and sisters, you are familiar with the law. Don't you know that the law applies only while a person is living? For example, when a woman marries, the law binds her to her husband as long as he is alive. But if he dies, the law of marriage no longer applies to her. So while her husband is alive, she would be committing adultery if she married another man. But if her husband dies, she is free from the law and does not commit adultery when she remarries. So, my dear brothers and sisters, this is the point. You died to the power of the law when you died with Christ. And now you are united with the one who was raised from the dead. As a result, we can produce a harvest of good deeds for God. When we were controlled by our old nature, sinful desires were at work within us, and the law aroused these evil desires that produced a harvest of sinful deeds, resulting in death. But now we have been released from the law, for we died to it and are no longer captive to its power. Now we can serve God, not in the old way of obeying the letter of the law, but in the new way of living in the Spirit. And that's Romans 7, 1 through 6. So I think it's important that we recognize that the example that's given at the beginning about the marriage and the committing adultery and all that, that's not the point of this passage. It's kind of an interesting example, but it's not the focus of this. And it's saying that when the law only applied to people who were living, and now that Christ has died and has been resurrected, when we become a believer, that gets us to the point where we're sort of resurrected with him. And so we're born again, right? It's the idea of baptism, right? So that we go under and we come back up. The idea is that we died and rose again with Christ. So I think that's super interesting. But the key here, I think, is right where it says you died to the power of the law when you died with Christ. I think that's a really important verse here. And I think it's super hard to understand as well.
Yeah.
It is hard to understand because when you become a Christian, it is fascinating to me that whole beginning section was just used to lay the groundwork and used as an analogy. I don't think anybody disagrees with what it's saying about marriage because it's almost like Paul's putting it forward like it's a given.
Yeah.
Like this was the common understanding. We have a different understanding nowadays, but that was just here. You all understand this analogy that once you're married, you're stuck to your husband until your husband's dead. But once your husband's dead, obviously you're not still, tied with him. So now in the same way, when you're just alive before you know the Lord, you have the law and the rules that are constantly ruling over you. Everything you do wrong can only be compared with what's written down. And when you become a Christian, you've got another controlling force. And one thing that I think that gets, I don't want to say overlooked, but it's I guess maybe not always focused on is becoming a Christian is not just believing in the story of salvation and believing that it's necessarily true, but becoming a Christian happens when you understand that concept of redemption and you surrender your life and allow the Holy Spirit to indwell in you. And all of a sudden now you have a new voice and new promptings and a new outlook on life and new drive. What used to drive you and what you used to be focused on was yourself. And I was trying to get the most out of this life, but I have the law and I want to be a good person. So I've got to try and navigate to get to where I want to get to, but I have the law to navigate because that's the right way to get there. And now it's like, well, you've surrendered that. You no longer are even pursuing what you want. Now you have a new marriage. Now you have a new husband, the new leader of your, he's telling you this is the direction that you go. And when you can hear him and you're being submissive and obedient to that, well, you're doing exactly right. It's weird to talk about it like in the context of a wife because the gender is, but that's that's in the analogy. Anytime it talks about our relationship with Christ is oftentimes that we're the bride because he is the one who has the agenda and he is working all around us. He's working in the people around us. He's got things that he is doing that he wants us as his partner to join him in. And so if we have that sense and we can hear him clearly and we can follow him, then it's like, well, you don't have to worry about navigating every single law because right now you need to just be responsive to your spiritual husband and do what he says. And if you're doing that, then you don't even have to like think about it because you're doing right and you feel that confirmation. And it's only other people on the outside that might say, hey, this guy's sure taking some liberties, eating meat offered to idols, which I don't do on a regular basis, but I know that if the time came, I'm free to do it. If that's what I need to reach those people.
It's funny. Donovan Jock, who's a friend of ours from church, who was a missionary in Bosnia, he actually dealt with that issue. The question of whether he should eat
meat sacrificed to idol.
Well, yeah, because he was in Bosnia, and so it's a Muslim country there, and they have these festivals, not festivals, but these holidays where what the Muslims will do is they'll sacrifice an animal, and then what they're supposed to do is they're supposed to give it to their neighbors. And so they have this church in a Muslim culture, and they're like, are we supposed to eat the stuff that the Muslims have given us? And Donovan was like, I guess I'm not sure. Like, I know the Bible talks about that a little bit. And so he's like looking into it, and he was like, it looks like as long as you're not partaking in what they're doing, yeah, you can eat it. And so but he was saying, unless you feel like, because it's a Muslim culture, he was like, I don't want you guys to go back into that, And so for some, maybe you shouldn't, but others you should.
It talks about how different people have different consciences. One of the things that Paul said when he was talking about that was, if he was to go somewhere and he was trying to reach people, and then they offered him, meat, and regardless of where it came from, because he doesn't believe idols have any power. So it's kind of like, to him, they did their thing, but it had no basis in reality or truth. So it didn't matter to him. It didn't bother his conscience. However, he also says that because he was coming from a Jewish place where if somebody ever said, oh, by the way, this meat was offered to idols, where someone else was concerned maybe he shouldn't, then he would never eat it. Not for his sake, but for that person's sake. Because if anybody who's like, is this okay with you? I know you're religious. Then you say, well, thank you. No, I won't, because Paul's going to do whatever is the best testimony to reach the people that he's seeking after. And that's another interesting thing when we read Romans. So many things many of the takeaways is kind of him saying to these strict Jewish people, don't worry about the law so much.
Right.
Embrace Jesus and get the Holy Spirit, and then stop worrying. Just do what you're told. Live through your Spirit. But to somebody who is not in that place, not living from their Spirit and living selfish, you could read Romans and go, look, it says right here, I don't have to obey the law. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, all right. What's the alternative?
Right.
Paul wasn't going and eating the meat because he thought the meat tasted good and he liked it especially. He said, I will never do anything if it could possibly trip someone else up.
Exactly.
And there's another verse that I'm getting a little off topic, but he almost puts the responsibility of the other person's conscience on the Christian, saying, if you do something and violate somebody else's conscience and you do something and everybody sees it and goes, oh, well, he does it, that means I can do it. And you switch somebody over to where they're starting to go where they don't understand and it's hurting their relationship, that you're held somewhat responsible for that. Mm-hmm. I shouldn't have said that because I don't have the verse handy, but it's pretty clear that, Paul took responsibility for how others would perceive his actions. Mm-hmm. And he would absolutely obey the law if it would cause somebody to be like, hey, if he can do it, I can do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But got a little off script there, but
we don't have a script. We've established that.
Yeah.
But I have seen, Andy, I joke about your show, but I've seen some of the episodes you do, and they're really great. You went through Ruth to start. Mm-hmm. I think I've only seen Ruth so far. Mm-hmm. Do you know what your next?
So yeah, I'm doing Jonah right now, I've gone through Jonah, but I haven't put them all up on YouTube. And so, but starting January 1st, it's going to be beginning of Matthew, and then throughout the whole year, I'm going to go all the way to Revelation. So,
okay,
yeah,
that was where I was kind of thinking, because you said there was 260 chapters in the New Testament, mm-hmm. and there was 260 weekdays in the year,
right?
But the only ones I ever heard was Ruth,
right?
And I wasn't sure if you realize that the new is second. It's after old.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I learned that recently.
Yeah, when you started
what the difference is between the two, but yeah, it's I wanted to do some beta testing, and it's a good thing I did, because there's a lot of just little things that I just didn't know how to do, and so, and just uploading onto YouTube, it's kind of new to me. So,
well, it's really well done, and it's interesting, and the nice thing about watching you on YouTube is there's some movement. You're going through the campus, and you take a chapter, and the ones that I've seen, when I listen to your commentary, then it makes me want to go back and read the book. I'm presuming you probably assume that people have read it and you're now giving a follow-up.
Right.
But when I listened to it, I hadn't read it, and I didn't have any context for Ruth. But the way you talk about it, it's like, oh wow, I don't remember hearing any of that. I got to go back and read this.
Right. I was actually hoping that it might do it the way that you did. Like,
yeah.
I was hoping that people would be like, wow, well, I have more questions about that. And so it can go either way. It's, meant to be kind of a commentary. So if you can watch it before or after, but I hope it encourages people to read their Bible.
Yeah, well, that's great. Well, we'll put we'll put your channel.
Yeah, definitely. We'll put a link in the channel. It's Andy Walks with Me on YouTube. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I really have enjoyed it too.
Oh, good.
So, I mean, we watched it the other night.
We watched together, a couple of them.
And when it was done, I mean, every time I've watched it up to this point, it's been to be ultra critical so I can give you advice. But when I just sat and watched
we still want to win.
Right.
Yeah, we do.
Like, we didn't already concede the race.
Right.
It's like, okay, so Andy seems like he's taking a jump ahead.
Right.
But
tune in next time for the greatest race. Has that one been taken already?
The race infinity. Infinity good.
Yeah.
So, but when we watched it, I just watched it just for the sake of watching it. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So it's great.
Thank you very much.
So on Romans 7, I had one more question.
Okay.
There is something that's super interesting, kind of a mystery to me.
Okay.
And it's in verse 5. It says, it's the second half of verse 5. It says the law aroused. I'm sorry. The law aroused these evil desires that produced a harvest of sinful deeds. The law aroused these evil desires. Isn't that super interesting? It's like, and I think we talked about this a little while back, but that indicates to me that like this idea, like sinful ideas, they weren't really there. And then the law was put there and you're like, hey, new sins. Like, hey, those are evil things I could do. What do you think about that?
I guess I shouldn't have said I guess. That means I have to say what I think afterward.
Well, it's better than I know for a fact.
Right. But I guess my mind goes two different ways, and I don't know which one it is.
I'll tell you.
Okay. Part of me thinks that it's like if you say, all right, do not knock on this door, but it's like there's two doors. It's like, do you mean don't knock on doors? Or do you mean don't knock on this door? I don't know why I'm using this analogy. I just saw a door. But it's like if you give me a law, I'm going to be like, what's the loophole? It's like you tell me not to do something. I think it's just your nature to be like, okay, what's the way around this? Because I want to do what you tell me not to do.
I imagine a garden of trees. Okay. This just came to me.
Okay.
And for some reason you can have whatever you want. The tree's all full of really good fruit, but then there's like, I don't know, maybe one tree you're not supposed to have.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
And I'm just spitballing here.
Right.
And for some reason, that's the one that you really want.
And up until that moment, you didn't really want to eat from any particular tree, but but now that you've been told you can't eat from that tree, and that one's the one the snake is near, that's kind of the one you want
exactly.
to go to.
You had a snake behind the door, right?
Right.
It was
Right. Exactly. I guess it it boils down to what you're saying. So, it says it produced a harvest of sinful deeds. And like you said, it's weird that the law, it's like you put up this law and you're like, okay, we made this and now things are worse because now people are producing all these sins that they wouldn't have done before. But I think it comes down to that. It's like, God, he wants closeness with us, and it's like he just gave us other ways to rebel. It's just it's interesting how he said it.
It's a horrible outlook on the human condition, right? This is saying you people are so horrible that if I give you a rule, you are going to immediately want to break it. Like it's going to, you're going to be like, a new rule for me to break.
Right. When I look at this chapter, it's something that is a major theme in the book of Romans is that there was Jews and there was Gentiles and they're in the same church, and Paul had never been to Rome at this point. And so what he's doing in a lot of his letters, but especially this one, is he's trying to say, the big question of the day was, do you need to become a Jew in order to become a Christian? Or do we need to just all become Gentiles in order to become a Christian? And he's kind of telling everybody, look, I need you to realize that we're not Jews and we're not Gentiles. We are this completely new thing. And so, when he's talking about here, we're kind of divorcing ourselves from this old law, and we're producing something that's completely different. And so I know this isn't the passage where he says, you're a new creation, but it's still in that idea. He's trying to say your identity now is completely different from what it was before. And in some ways he's trying to say your Judaism was good, but it wasn't perfect. And he goes the other way and says it to the Gentiles too, like that's not perfect and this isn't perfect. And so he's trying to say, become Christians, rally around the Christianity. That's the most important part. And I don't think it's the main point of this passage, but I think it's a main theme that runs through the book of Romans.